Hello, and welcome to another episode of Straight from the Training Ground. I'm Jay, along with Ryan, the podcast where we share our love for the beautiful game and bring you the people in their local communities doing beautiful things. We have Ovpl update, spring update on Ohio Valley Premier League soccer. We're going to discuss amateur soccer and local soccer in your area. And we also have two big updates on two Ovpl players who have signed professional contracts over the winter. Stay tuned for that. Rosmondo, how are you?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, I'm good.
Anything going around your way? I know OVPL, some of those things are starting up. It's still a little chilly outside in our area, but spring is near.
Yeah, quite a bit. We had a tournament at the weekend. Our U19s played up in Pittsburgh and did very well in the tournament up there. Was keeping us busy. And on Friday though, we had a tryout for this year's OVPL team, an adult men's team. Really good turnout. I know the weather was awful on Friday. It was freezing. We actually had planned to go outside for the second hour of the tryout, but I didn't think, playing outside at 10 degrees Fahrenheit was a very good idea. So we had an indoor, we were indoor for about an hour and 15 minutes. Really good. We got about 26 guys there. It really is interesting because there's a whole bunch of new players that came along. Some of them drove 3 hours to get there. Some really good quality. A lot of guys I'd never met. So it was a really good chance to see them. And, just based on the tryout, I think we'll be pretty solid again this year. And I'm excited about it. Maybe a different kind of, I'd say, profile for our team. Maybe a little bit younger this year, which is great. But it's just gearing up for the OVPL season. And if you put a few more things into place, and we should be ready to go.
Okay, so real quick for any of our listeners out there, you have a U19 team. Is the OVPL team in the summer, is that the same roster? Is it different? Two separate squads? How do you do that?
Two separate squads. There are two or three guys that kind of cross over from the U19s and can play up to the U23s. We have about, I said two or three right now. It's basically a U18 team, the youth team. So some of those guys were at the tryouts as well.
Okay.
They'll be offered a roster spot in the U23 team. And so, yeah, I mean, it's two separate squads. The U19 was kind of an offshoot that we just started doing after we had the adult men's team. But it's good because we have a big pool of players that are around that we can pull from. But as I said, this time at the tryouts, we had a lot of guys that drove a long distance to come here. We had a lot of new guys. I think it's just a lot of players now are recognizing that playing in the summer, whether it be OVPL, whether it be a city league, or whether it be USL2 or something, they're recognizing that there's these opportunities around to get your game into a good place for when you get into your college season, and they're really leveraging that. So I think that we're that kind of platform for players, and we're a pretty stable, solid group of solid organization, I think. So it's so players are they're coming to us, so we're pleased about it.
Yeah, that's really cool. And also, so along those lines with your roster and things like that, how much, could you put a percentage on, or how much turnover do you think you have? Is the majority of your squad coming back or not?
Good question. No, actually, no. I think we'll probably have about a quarter or a third of our last year's squad coming back. And then the rest are new. The new players, whether they've been around the area but never chose to try out, or whether they're just new guys to the area, to the colleges around here. But it's a whole new bunch of players that will be involved. We got a few familiar faces, but yeah, a turnover, which I think is healthy. I think it's good. There's also the age assist thing too. Like some guys kind of age out by their own choice. They get to about 23, 24, and they're looking for jobs, internships. They're busy, and maybe the guys that were 17, 18 previously are now a year or two old. No, obviously a year older, and so it's their opportunity now to maybe step up and try and take the spot that's been vacated. So we're excited about that.
Oh, that leads me to my next question. How many do you have? Any what you would call an adult player? Anybody on your roster that is
Yeah, we've got a
above the
28-year-old.
college age? Just one, or
Well, we've got a 28-year-old coming back, which is fantastic, I think, because all over the
yeah.
world, guys play adult, open age, adult, semi-pro, amateur soccer till in their late 30s. So we got a 28-year-old and a few guys in their couple of guys in the mid-20s, but a lot of them are, between 18, 19, and 21. So that age bracket was probably the
Mainly
most.
college.
Mainly college, traditional college age guys, yeah.
And can you let us know what kind of colleges may be represented yet or not?
Yeah, our local. Yeah, I can say that. Our local colleges. I mean, we've got to put roster offers out yet. They may turn around and say no, but I think we'll be okay. But the two local colleges, which is Wheeling University, Division II, and then West Liberty University, also a Division II program in the really strong MEC Mountain East Conference. They'll be well represented in our squad, I believe. And then we have a few others. I won't go into where the others are from because it's probably I want to wait till they officially offer, but.
Gotcha.
A number of other colleges will be represented this time, including some Division I colleges. So that's going to be good.
Okay, awesome. Real quick, if anyone hasn't watched our channel yet, I don't know who that might be, but if you haven't, and you're just catching up, explain a little bit, just real quick, on what you've done. OVPL, you've started a team, and in your first couple of years now in Wheeling, what do you think that's done, or what are you trying to do for the community for local soccer?
Well, I think our priority when we started this was for area players to give them a really good vehicle to continue playing or to play at a higher level. I think that was the priority, and that was like the nucleus of everything. But around that, we wanted to have an impact, positive impact in the community as something that local people can come and watch high-level soccer during the summer.
Sure.
They didn't have to drive far. It was right here. And then also from that, a byproduct is you get a bit of pride from that. We have a successful team. We happen to have a successful team so far. Touchwood, two good seasons. Hopefully with some, at least we're competitive in a third season. Maybe we're successful. I don't know. But to have a bit of pride in that. So that's kind of like the hierarchy of what we're looking for. We're getting to a point now where we've grown a couple of youth teams under that system. So there's been a foundation's kind of been established.
Okay.
With that, I think what we're going to try and look at now is grow the organization a bit. In terms of maybe some commercial opportunities and stuff, partnering with local area businesses. So we just increase the impact of what we're doing. But at the core of everything, it's the player. And I want to kind of emphasize that because give you an example, our U19 team, our guys pay $450. That's what they pay. And they get a full season, winter, 1 and 2, spring, all the way through to May. And doing that, we're competitive as well. It's not just $450 for rec level. They're actually a very competitive travel team.
Yeah.
We went up to Pittsburgh yesterday, played ECNL teams. We do for $450. We're quite creative in how we do that, but it can be done. And we like to have that as kind of like one of the pillars of what this club's about, to make it accessible to players.
Community soccer.
Yep.
Love it. Also, so we'll get to this in a minute here. We have an interview with OVPL Commissioner Brandon Ponchak, but it's great to see the opportunity for those guys that you're talking about over the summer. And Brandon will also get into the fact there's more women's teams this year entering the OVPL than ever before also. But for those college players, there has been a handful over the last couple of years who have signed some professional contracts, who are playing in other countries, who have signed. I think we're going to touch on one here that signed a USL 1 contract. So, it is a real pathway to continue your soccer career.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a player, our center back from our first season, Pittsburgh guy. He went over and he's playing in Kosovo, and I think now he's looking at playing somewhere else in Eastern Europe as a professional. So he transitioned all the way through. And I think what people don't realize is quality level amateur soccer, such as high level college, whether it's Division 1, 2, or NAI or Division 3, even the top level of players, the difference between that and professional is only small. And so players can make that jump if they have a bit of luck, their attitude's right, they've got the required technical ability. They can, get to that level. And I think OVPL is just another, I use that word again, accessible venue for them to kind of continue playing. And maybe if they get that slice of luck, they get to the next level and get a test and try that out. So how many players was there? I think there's about 3
Yeah,
or
it's
4.
really cool. I think Brandon said in our interview 6 total now. We'll put some links in this episode today in the description for local soccer. I think a lot of people out there still are not aware of what all is out there in the United States, not just MLS, that's out there in USL. Right. There's several divisions of USL. There's amateur leagues all over the place. There's OVPL in the Ohio Valley, kind of region. There's all kinds of things throughout the spring and summer where you can support local soccer. And it's a pretty good level, like you just alluded to. So we'll have our interview right now with Brandon Ponchak, OVPL Spring Update for 2023. Always great to have the OVPL commish Brandon back with us. Brandon, how you been?
Good. Been exciting stuff going on in OVPL land, and hopefully a lot more than that as well.
I like
Awesome.
OVPL land. That's a great way of putting it.
Well, give us some updates. What do you got going on over the winter here within the OVPL?
So first and foremost, we're nearing the conclusion of the expansion for the summer 2023 window here. End of the month, really, of January. There may be a little flexibility into February, but our big time annual general meeting is at the end of February 26th. So we want to have everything finalized by then and everything set to go, so everybody knows where they're playing and who they're playing. And it looks like we're on pace to get to several divisions right now to break it up. So travel is going to be even better for everybody. Could be 4 divisions of 6 teams. It could be 3 divisions of 7 or 8 teams. We'll see how that shakes up and how the final numbers go. If it gets more, that'd be excellent as well. And as well, along with that, our women's side is growing really nicely. I think we could have up to 10 women's teams this summer.
Oh, good.
Which would be incredible. And then since the first of the year happened, we've had a couple big bits of news with 2 players signing professional deals. Josu Dubon from Evansville Legends signed in El Salvador, and then Diallo Irakoze from the Lexington Land Sharks signed a USL 1 deal with the Lexington
fantastic.
Sporting Club.
Nice. So how many does that make now?
That gives 6, including, because we haven't talked about it since, but Ryan and the West Virginia Highlanders had Mohammadi Al-Khatib signed in Kosovo back in September, and we all had busy schedules, so we haven't had an opportunity to talk about Mohammadi.
Yeah, he did. He won to Europe.
So that's pretty exciting for Mohammadi and the Highlanders straight out of Wheeling. So we had a good time out in Philadelphia at United Soccer Coaches National Convention, and that's where we were able to touch base with a lot of clubs, current, maybe former, even to some extent, but also potentials, and that was some exciting stuff. And we also have, I think, a couple clubs that are returning again that were once in, left, maybe took a slight hiatus just to get things going back again, some leadership structure in place, and then it's time to rock and roll again. So it was a good time out in Philly.
So, Brandon, what do you think about that? And I'm putting you on the spot here, but what do you think about the format of the league to still be a West and an East conference again?
Absolutely. That and my hopes and desires, that won't change much, because we want to make sure that travel for everybody is as manageable as possible. We know, like, everybody's got busy summers, whether it's work, significant others, travel with holiday, summer classes, family outings, mom and dad pushing to do something that you may not want to do as well. So making travel the smallest burden for the whole summer is one of the biggest objectives of what we do. And I think all of our members will appreciate that as well, because everybody likes to spend time locally and play as much in front of their local crowds and try to build up the local rivalries as much as possible.
So with this local focus, would that include a neutral venue at the final of the OVPL Cup? Just wondering for a friend. I didn't know.
It just depends on what membership wants, and maybe somebody's going to come out there and say, "Hey, here's $10,000 for the winner, but you have to come to Indianapolis to play."
Yeah.
So, Brandon, on a more serious note, in a perfect world, what would you foresee, or what would you like to see OVPL eventually turning into? Not this year necessarily, but in the long term.
That's a great question. I mean, I have my own kind of visions a little bit, I guess you'd say. Like,
Let us have it.
I think Jay's been researching. That was a big question. That was
it's no lie that I'm a fan of promotion and relegation, but I also am a fan of promotion and relegation in a sense where sustainability is the number one thing. The last thing I would want is for a team in our let's say we have a first division, to get relegated and it increases their travel budget by double.
Or they fold altogether.
Or they fold altogether, right? And that maybe that's something. I mean, I already see some complaints about referee budgets in some other leagues. Some of them might have their referee budgets doubled, and it's not because that money is going to be going to the referees necessarily. It's going to be done in a different system. And that's not something that we're in favor of increasing referee budgets unless we know it goes back to referees, and we're going to continue to account and make sure that our clubs are getting the best referees possible in those sense. So like, as long as we can continue to ensure that the sustainability of clubs is first and foremost, then my dream or hope of a promotion relegation to some extent is really kind of out the window. And I'm okay with that. I think it does add some fun to it.
Yeah.
I think if I were to say, hey, money is not an issue, or we could figure out, some sort of media deal where we're getting tens and hundreds of thousands of viewers watching OVPL and it offsets them budgets. I think one of the things I'd like to see a little bit more of is an expanded season that permits a lot more local games for local communities. Because I'd love for an amateur season to extend, let's say 10 months of the year. Not saying you have to play every weekend, but if we could figure out a way to say, hey, here's a 25 game season spread out over 10 months. Yeah. I think it'd be a lot of fun if it was possible and doable within the confines of the system.
Yeah, the problem is, you and I have talked about this offline a lot. I mean, the challenge is you're buttressing up against the collegiate system, and just so many of the players in OVPL are college players, and in any league anyway, all the way up to USL 2, even some USL 1. I mean, it's just, I don't know how you navigate around the 4-month college window there, which is just locked in. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's a huge challenge, and I just think, I don't know how the US non-league system of soccer will ever get around that.
Yeah, that is a tough one. I mean, I know ways that we can get around it, come from November through to July.
Right.
But that's also, trying to take into account that colleges, university coaches would accept it, and some of their players stepping out of those programs a little bit to continue developing in times like January, February, March, where they're largely wasted months for an 18 to 22 year old. Or
no, 100%.
Depending 100%. Depending on the college and university, maybe up to 25, 26 year old as well.
I mean, yeah, Jay can tell you how much time we wasted personally, but it's I just think that it's that's one of the challenges. Another challenge I was going to ask you there, Brandon, is OVPL is one of a kind of myriad of regional leagues in the area, and from Midwest to the eastern side of the US. Has there been any discussions about maybe consolidation between any of those groups, or even not consolidation, any partnership potential?
Yeah, we've had some good conversations. I mean, those conversations started back in the pandemic times, really, where everybody was confined to Zooms and StreamYards and all those good conversations. The biggest thing always comes back to for us, and I hope I'm kind of speaking for a lot of the clubs, is we don't want to do anything that doesn't make sense for everybody involved. Does it make sense for certain ones to partake in a national system or something where you say, hey, you know what? Now you're going to have to travel 8 hours multiple times during your season in order to play one regular season match. And that doesn't make a lot of sense for people. Even if we try to set it up in a cup format, or, let's call it a Champions League format, there's going to have to be something that helps offset costs, since there's several that just operate on a shoestring budget, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But we can't ask people to say, hey, now all of a sudden you have to drive, partway across the country. You got to skip a couple time zones. And you got to do it. You got a 7:00 kickoff. We don't have that in our budget for hotels either night, the night before or the night of. So now you're asking people to travel 7-8 hours before a game and after a game. And that's just not feasible for a lot of people. And it shouldn't be. I'm of the mindset that the U.S. is big enough for a lot of different leagues, as long as in a system that makes sense, for regional focus and for local focus, and to reduce a lot of costs. And that goes all the way down to the youth scene as well. There should be multiple leagues where kids can play without even really leaving their backyard.
Yeah, 100% on that, Brandon. I'm glad you brought that up, because and it's crazy that there's this push for consolidation sometimes and making everything just one vertical structure, because what people over here try and talk about as the pinnacle is just English, the English system. When they get into their amateur and their semi-professional, it's regional as well. So in England, there's a Northern Premier League, and then there's leagues off that feed into the National League. So they don't travel more than we travel in the OVPL. If you're in, and that's a high level of that's the highest level of amateur soccer. The Midlands is the same thing, and the south of the country is the same thing. They won't travel more than 3 hours for a game, and that's what we're doing here. So I think keeping some things regional is just a necessity. It has to happen like that.
I'd say the only time we may look at really diving out there in a grander scheme, obviously if money wasn't an issue and there was some funding behind it, however that were to come, I don't know. Or if somebody decides to start building some high speed rail across the U.S. and we can get anywhere we want to in a couple hours max, right?
That'd be nice. Exactly. If anyone out there wants to do that for the OVPL, you know where to contact us.
Yeah, sign us up for that one. We'll be the test pilots for that.
But along those lines, anything else coming up? Mainly getting started late spring. That'd be correct?
So May 1's kind of our target date of, hey, this is when season kicks off, mainly to work within the college confines and sure, limitations. Our schedule release will probably, kind of around the first week of March is kind of when schedules should be released. Can start.
You'll hear it here first, folks.
Yeah, that's true. And then we're looking at the league championship will be July 22nd, tentative date, that weekend, weather permitting in some instances, right?
At a neutral site. It'll be in Madrid.
So the AGM's it's a good time coming up. This will be, hopefully we were going to do it in person, but we decided, hey, let's do another virtual one. It's just easier for everybody. I think we're going to have a couple presenters during that time, some sponsors that are jumping on board that we will release at a soon to be date. That should be pretty exciting, and I know one of them is going to be incredible for league operations. That should make a lot of things smoother for all clubs involved as well.
Once again, thanks for joining us, Brandon. Brandon Ponchak, the commissioner of the OVPL, Ohio Valley Premier League. Make sure you check them out online and support your local teams out there throughout the summer. A lot of great people put in a lot of work. Thanks again, Brandon. Visit our partners at TractionSocks.com for performance grip socks created for all athletes. Visit our new partners, UnoZero at UnoZero.com, where classic beauty and quality meet modern design and elegance for football boots and more.